CanHammer is a gaming podcast from the Great White North. See canhammer.ca for more info.
Welcome everybody to CanHammer, your source for 40k AOS and Shadespire from the Great White North. I'm here, Darren, with my special guest tonight, Phil. You must remember Phil from Warhammer Shadespire podcast number 1, and I guess that's it, just number 1. So
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So Chris is not here tonight. He is currently driving his way all the way across the Great White North to Chicago to go to Adepticon.
Well, that's a long drive.
Yeah, he's taking part in the 40k team tournament there, and just to take part in. I would love to go to Adepticon, actually.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I might go next year.
I've been talking about it for years, about trying to get away, but it always seems like it comes and goes, and before you know it, April's here. And
like it seems like a cool place, event to go to, even if you don't play. There's like so much stuff going on.
That one in the Las Vegas one.
yeah. And there's a big announcement tonight at 9 p.m. Central Time with the studio preview, the GW studio preview. Apparently a bigger announcement than 8th edition.
What?
Yeah, that's what they said today on the Warhammer community site.
What's bigger than that?
I don't know. People have been talking about it since that came out.
9th edition? Cool. Slow down. It's going too fast.
Yeah, no, I guess we'll see. It's 9 p.m. Central Time, which I guess is 10 p.m. our time. So we need to talk fast, and then we can watch it on Facebook Live.
Sure, there you go.
So, yeah, that's tonight's podcast is Shadespire podcast number 2. We will go over the 2 new warbands, the Fyreslayers warband and the new Skaven warband, and just kind of give our initial thoughts on those, some early playtesting experience. We'll be looking at the most recent Clash winning deck, which happened to be a Skaven deck. And we'll be giving our thoughts on where we think some of the competitive meta is going as we prepare for our first CanHammer Clash, which is coming up, but we'll cover that shortly. So that's kind of what we'll be talking about tonight. First, a shout out goes out to our patrons. Thank you very much to all our current patrons for their continued support of the channel. We couldn't be doing this without you. And shout out to Engineer Harry as one of our new patrons that signed on since the last podcast. Thank you very much, Engineer Harry, for your support. It's very much appreciated. We're going to segue right on to hobby time. Phil, the man with the new kid.
The newborn, yeah.
Who apparently has more hobby time now than before you had a second kid.
I seem to have gotten quite a bit of stuff done. It's slowed down now. Like now, kind of work is kicking my butt. So I'm.
Wait. You work?
I do. Hardest working man in showbiz.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I was just saying before I was on. I'm on. This is hour 8 of Skype for me today. Got the opportunity to phone in for my writers' summit, so I didn't have to fly over to Toronto for the day. So my producers let me work from home today, which was nice.
And you were painting that whole time, right?
No, I wasn't. The camera was on. I've done this before. Like if it's conference calls, and we're just discussing notes and stuff on scripts or whatever. I've been known to paint on. I've been known to paint occasionally on the long boring calls, but this was full on Skype and stuff.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I couldn't tune out. I was doing my work. But yes, so but I did last sort of hobby thing that I managed to finish was my. I'm done almost all of my war bands for. Shadespire. I'm just missing my Fyreslayers, so they're not primed yet, but all the other ones are done. Everyone's painted, everyone's finished. So.
Yeah, no, they look good. They look good. We played your skeletons a couple of weeks ago, and they look good. Cool. Anything else in the hobby? I hear rumors that the new Necron stuff coming out next week is interesting you.
Yeah, I kind of took a little break of 40k over the summer and into the winter, and I don't know. Now I'm kind of I think I've waited long enough, and the new book's coming out, and I've got quite a bit of Necron stuff, and I used to play them quite often. So I think that'll be my excuse to get back into 40k because I kind of miss it. So, But yeah, so I have. I don't know what's going to be, good or whatever, but I do have like tons. I bought a bunch of destroyers at the end of when the index came out. So because that seemed like it was the only. It was by far the only thing that seemed reliably good for a lot of reasons. So, so I have a lot of those, and I kept my fingers crossed that they were gonna not just be terrible. So it seems like they seem all right. So
yeah, well, it's pretty exciting. I think I just played against a Tau list last night, and they do have a lot of good new synergies, and so I guess we'll see. In terms of last week I was in LA and we took my kid to Disney, and so I was looking at all this kind of animated IP, like intellectual property, the old Disney universe, and I was thinking, if Phil could break into this universe, man, he'd be like the Elon Musk of animation.
I've done some work for Disney. I've done a couple of stuff for them in the past. But none of my shows got picked up by Disney. So I'm still waiting on that.
Still waiting for it.
Yeah,
the big paycheck. Yeah, so Elon Musk got paid $2.6 billion today by his company.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Not bad for making
that's
cars.
a lot of Forge World.
That is a lot of Forge World. So I got Chris. I have an order in with Chris to pick me up Forge World because, of course, Forge World gets sold by GW at DevCon.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have to pay for shipping, obviously. So I got him to pick me up some stuff. I don't know, some of the stuff is like Warhammer World only, though, so I don't know if they actually bring that stuff along with them. But yeah.
Cool.
Hobby-wise, last week I didn't do anything because I was away, and I'm just preparing my CanHammer Team tournament list for CanHammer Team, which involves finishing off my Custodes mostly. So I've been finishing off the magnetized lances for all the bikers, which takes a bit of time because I'm putting quite a bit of time into the sort of shiny tip of the lances.
So those bikes were looking pretty sharp. So
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm like, each one is a character to me. Like, I'm spending all the time on every one, so I want this army to look sick. And now after this, I got to base everything with these marble bases. So that's where I think you're going to kill yourself with that. That sounds pretty intense. Well, so I'll tell you a trick. So I got these Dragonforge bases from Dragonforge. They're pre-made resin bases. They look like marble stone, just like the shape of them. And then the plan is to make them like a whitish, off-white marble with not too much. Like, you can paint marble really highly decorated or just like not that decorated. So I got this tip off Adam Abramovitz, who is the guy who does the Best General podcast. Mm-hmm. So his secret tip for painting that kind of wispy marble pattern is to get a piece of, he calls it Brillo pad, but we call it steel wool. And whatever color you want your wispiness, you airbrush it through the steel wool.
Wait, so you, how do you...
So you spray it through the steel wool, and because of all the little gaps and stuff in the steel wool, I haven't tried it yet. I have some steel wool sitting beside me, and I'm going to try it once I get started on the bases. But
that might work. That's a neat. What do they call those? Like life hacks?
That's a life hack.
That's quite neat. Yeah. Oh, good stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, my pans are sitting upstairs unscrubbed now, but I have the steel wool ready to go.
Yeah, and you don't want to start scrubbing your pans after that with like your thing that's covered in paint either.
Yeah. So Duncan does have a video on Warhammer TV on how to paint marble, but he does it all by hand. And I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna be able to do that.
No. It's beautiful, but it's such like a, I don't know, it's a very finicky thing. I would never ever do that. I would just I like my old like gray dry brush wash, and that's like stone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marble
we'll see how it goes.
Commitment. It's cool. Yeah.
I might lose the will to live after one or two of them. And yeah. So I haven't been up to that much because I've been away, but just working on Custodes mostly. And finished that Dreadnought off before I left. And it's looking pretty good. So we're going to just plug some events. So the next event coming up is, in fact, the CanHammer Clash. Woohoo!
Cool. Yeah, those prizes look pretty sweet.
Yeah, so when I started planning this with Ben and Dylan, they didn't have any of the prize support. They just had like a pack of alternative art healing potions. and that
Right.
didn't seem like very compelling price support. And but we decided to go for it anyway and just do price support like our P&Ps, just like cash support, cash money. But then all of a sudden now they've received the full organized play pack, so it has that sweet glass trophy, and it has everybody gets like a deck box and 2 alternate cards and some new those wooden markers, like the
like the
activation
win
markers.
tokens, and they look really cool.
Yeah. And then the winners get some other sweet stuff. So we have full prize support now, and so now we know that how much the prize support costs. Actually, we're able to lower the entry to the tournament to only $10.
Cool.
So come one, come all. New players, experienced players, everyone can come. It's going to be a great time. It's 3 rounds, and then the top 4 have an extra round to play off. Top 4 will get the prizes. Everybody goes home with something, and there will be a Best Painted award as well. So it's going to be a good time. And you will be able to do it all in like half the time of a Warhammer tournament.
and it's a good excuse to learn the game too. Like I think what's nice about where the game's at, like no one's an expert, and you just have people that might have played a little bit more, but I think the vast majority might be people that are just starting out or whatever. So I think it's and knowing our local gaming community, people are pretty chill. So it'll be a good time, I think.
Oh, yeah. People who are just picking it up, or if you want to pick it up in the next couple of weeks and come out, definitely. There's no mandatory painting requirement, but obviously won't win Best Painted, but because we want people to come even if they're just playing with their colored plastic, which is fine. So yeah, I hope lots of people come. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 people already signed up. I need to update the website. But yeah, so it's gonna be cool. 16 spots only. So and this is going to guide us as to whether or not there's enough interest in the Ottawa area to run Shadespire at Capital City. So this is kind of a testing the waters.
Sweet.
Yeah. 2 weeks after that is then CanHammer Team Tournament. Now, obviously, this tournament sold out within about 8 minutes of it going live. But just people know that, for one, probably one of the biggest 40K events in Canada this year. We have 110 players, I believe.
That's insane.
So it's going to be a big event. Yeah. And you know what's more insane? That's 51 or 52 tables just between Chris and Jason.
Yeah, they've been posting pictures of all their stuff. It looks really
like complete tables, mats and terrain.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how much stuff they have. But yeah, that's going to be a big event, and it's going to be cool. And then finally, Capital City Bloodbath, not officially open for registration or anything, but just to tell people that the official dates are August 18th and 19th. So mark it on your calendars. Make arrangements to be there. The format's changed a little bit this year. Most likely, we will not be running the Friday anymore. It just was not feasible to run it as we used to do with the Friday. So there will be no more doubles events, but we will be running full-on 40K, hopefully reach the major mark this year, as well as AOS singles, and then Batman and all those other things. So it's going to be a great weekend of gaming in Ottawa. Do make plans to attend if you can.
I just marked it in my calendar right now.
So very good. Excellent. Between CanHammer Team and Capital City Bloodbath, we'll probably get 1 or 2 more P&Ps, so stay tuned to the Facebook page and to the website. And hopefully, I'm hopeful we can get an AOS tournament in there as well.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. If a P and not a power fist and psychers, I guess it'd be wizards and steel swords.
Day of Blood, man. Day of Blood.
Oh, Day of Blood, right? Yeah. Daggers and wizards.
Wizardry? No.
Blood, yeah.
Wizards and warriors? No. All right. So we're going to hit a commercial break and have a chance for a message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, Martin here from wargamesuk.co.uk. Proud to sponsor their boys at CanHammer. Come check us out for some great discounts on all your hobby goodness and needs.
And we're back. So, before we get on to the two new warbands, we're just going to talk about the two newer warbands that were actually just announced last week, I think, while I was in California. So, take it away, Phil. What excitement do we have coming our way?
Well, their names elude me at the moment, but it's basically the those Ranger Stormcasts. I'll call them, what's their name in AOS? Like, not the Wild Riders, but anyway.
They're not the Chocobo guys?
Yeah, Chocobo. Yeah, well, the foot version of those guys, I suppose. But what's exciting about so there's three of them, and what's exciting about them is that they all have those little crossbows.
Yeah,
so they might I don't know if it's going to be a 2-range or 3-range thing, but it looks like we have our first ranged warband.
Well,
or maybe they'll have the double profile. We'll be able to maybe shoot two swords at 3 hexes for 1 damage, and then at close range you'll probably have the standard 2 hammer at 2 damage or something like that. So
yeah, that's very interesting, because even in my decks, like the 2-range attack on the Warden or the 2-range attack on Scritch, or like a Shake Glass Darts for 3 range, that comes in handy so often. So a whole warband, well, it's only 3 guys, I guess, but 2 can shoot maybe 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 hexes, or maybe they have a mechanic where it gets weaker the further it goes. I'm excited to see what that is.
Or even just the ability to we play those cards to add 1 damage to like great strength or something. So all of a sudden your 3-range attack does 2 damage. It can get pretty nuts. So and one of them does. I think the leader does have a bird. So I don't know how the bird plays into it, but I'm assuming that the bird might actually be like this crazy, it's a 6-range hex attack. And what's interesting is that in the last set of neutral cards that we got in some of the ploys, there's a few of them that specifically mentioned. I think one of them is I forget, it's like vanishing darkness or something. It's that. It just reduces the range of attacks to 1, so range 3 attacks don't work anymore. So it's interesting, because before it was like you had to say Shake Glass Darts and those Skaven throwing stars, but those were the only 2 3 range attacks, right? So
but a lot of those strength buffing cards say specifically range 1 or 2 attacks.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah.
So that might be a balancing to some super range attacks.
It's true. Yeah, you're very right.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I love how every warband comes out and might change the meta a little bit or alter the way people play. I really like that about all the warbands that have come out.
And they do balance. And then so there's those guys, and then the other warband was actually the one that I thought I would be the least excited about. It was like the Khorne, the Blood Warrior faction, but just by adding 1 model in that faction, they changed everything for me. Is that they added that flesh hound? Yeah, it was like there's a dog in it, so I am in. I'm into these guys. So you have your 3 sort of blood warrior
I can't
characters.
remember what they're called, but they're the armored guys, not the naked guys.
Yeah, I think they're called blood. There's blood reavers and blood warriors. I think blood warriors are the ones that are armored. So they look
and the flesh hound like as a separate model, which is awesome.
So, and we were just discussing that, it'll probably have, most of these warbands, the stats are fairly similar across the line, because it'll be like, have 3 Stormcast Eternals, or you have, 5 Skaven. But this one, it's like you have 3, humans and then 1 big dog. So the dog might be faster, it might be stronger, it might have more wounds. So I'm really curious to see how that warband's going to play.
Yeah. Would you be disappointed if the dog ends up being a Dango Bro?
I told you now with the new weapons there are no Dangle Bros. Any Dangle Bro can be a
that's true.
Any one of those those inconspicuous characters can now be a potential killing machine.
It'd be interesting if it was some kind of like a suicide bomb. It can move 6, but then it's very easy to kill or something. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I guess there's no. They didn't tell us an idea when these were coming out.
No, they just. I remember when they teased the Chosen Axes and Spike Claws Swarm. It was still kind of a fairly long. It was a long lead up, and I think especially now that we just got. It feels like we just got the new warbands. You kind of let it simmer for a little bit, and then maybe release them by the summer, which would be okay, I think.
Yeah.
Or late spring, maybe not sort of them, but yeah, just give a bit of time to digest what's out there now. But yeah.
No, I like the rate actually, because they release a sum and then it shakes things up. a few clashes, and then like some more stuff. That's pretty cool.
It
I
did
really
feel
want to see
slow
more
between.
death.
Yeah, but it did feel a bit slow between when the Sepulchral Guard and the Orcs came out, and then the Spyclaw Swarm and Chosen Axes. Like that felt like it was a little bit too long of a gap between things. People kind of seem to like take the steam out of the thing. But I mean, hopefully, if these new factions don't if they release by the summer, we should be fine. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, we're going to segue into talking about the Chosen Axes, which of course is the Fyreslayers warband. And the Chosen Axes is composed of these 4 dwarven warriors with massive mohawks.
Yep, they're
no pants.
No pants, no pants, no shirts. No service, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Yeah.
So what's kind of the flavor of these guys, Phil?
They're slow. They're slow moving. They're slow moving.
Yeah, they're like Skelebro slow, man.
Yeah, tough as nails, slow moving. Chris busted them out when we had our little Shadespire day last week or a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, they play their interesting mechanic is that they inspire by sitting on objectives. So they're you're kind of in control of how you inspire them. You just basically sit them on an objective, and then at the end of the phase they inspire. When they inspire, they negate one of their biggest weaknesses is that they only move 2, and by being inspired they move 3, which brings them they go from being a skeleton to a stormcast basically.
Yeah, so the leader is this guy Fjol Grimnir, and he's pretty tanky. He has 4 wounds, one shield dice, and he hits for 3 uninspired. And when he inspires, he hits for 4 with cleave and goes up to 5 wounds. So he is a beast. He's probably the killiest character, probably more killy than Gerzak.
His upgrades are so good. On top of that, like he has a lot of like character specific upgrades, and they make him more survivable. They make him move like super fast. So I think the if there is a crux and a sort of a like the best part of this army is like you can turn this guy into like an absolute monster. So if you lose him early, I think you're
kind of screwed.
It's really hard compared to some other armies where they're not as dependent on their leader, but he's just like he's so good when he's
they're extra dependent on the leader. Yeah. So as Phil mentioned, the inspiration requirement is that they hold the objective at the end of the action phase. So not just sit on it for one activation, but they have to be on it at the end of the first action phase, or any action phase, I guess. But so that is a very interesting, because that obligates you, and when uninspired they're really slow, not too hard to kill, and not too killy. So it kind of obligates you, if you play dwarves, that you have to plan your first action phase around ending it on objectives. Otherwise, at least 2 of your guys, and hopefully one of them is your leader, otherwise you're behind the ball.
Yeah, and I think Chris played them quite well in like most of the games that I saw him play. He was getting them inspired pretty easily, because there's like they have a lot of like movement shenanigans, especially for like running towards objectives. So even though they have low speed on the card, there's a lot of ways that they can actually move like 4 to 5 hexes when they need to get on objectives and stuff. So. Yeah. But the problem with objective play, is that you do hope that your opponent, there's a few cards that we're going to talk about that do knock you off objectives, do push you off objectives. So I think that's if that's how I would to counter them specifically, that earthquake and all that jazz kind of moves.
Well, there are a lot of cards that push you. Not just Earthquake, obviously, that moves all of you, but just sidesteps and all these sort of things, as well as like confusions and 2 or 3 cards that swap people. Of course, if someone just hits you, they can knock you back. Yep. There's so many ways of booting you off that objective on that last activation that would make you go, no.
And that can feel like you're really taking the air out of the tires. Like it could be a bit like that's probably what I would. That's probably what I look forward to the least, is that, my first game with these guys, setting them all up to get like at least 3 of them inspired, and then someone somehow playing a bunch of ploys and just like knocking me off all of my objectives, and then just feeling like
fair, they did get some cards in that are dwarf specific, chosen specific, that helps you get back on objectives, but there are a lot of cards out there that a lot of ways of pushing you off.
Yeah.
So I personally didn't really like having to put all my eggs into holding something in the first turn, or else literally just losing. I haven't tried them yet though, so I will try them at some point. But that didn't really kind of catch my fancy.
Well, it's you can almost think of them like a rocket. You take your first your first turn is your ignition turn. So you kind of you sit on your objectives, do the countdown, power up your guys, depending on again who you play against, but making sure that you don't I wouldn't play them defensively, because I think you need to be smashing face in the second turn, or else you're in a different kind of trouble. So you can't just they're not a sepulchral guard. They're not a try to sit in your zone and wait, but you definitely need to just power up in that first turn, and then after that, once you go Super Saiyan, you just go out there and just beat people up.
Yep. So, what do you think of what are some of your favorite cards in that?
There's actually quite a few. I find there. Maybe let's look at the. Their faction specific objectives. I like their fighty ones. Like any of the one that says score this immediately if your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. That'll be you'll get that. They have a lot of variations on cards that exist. So there's that one where I think it's called Fury of the Lodge. All your surviving fighters, at least 3, made a charge action. I love that card in Khorne. I love that card in the Orcs. So that card shows up in a lot of these warbands. You get a benefit for charging. You have a lot of these, a Grim Promise. So, if you take out an enemy leader out of action, you get a glory. So there's a lot of these sort of fighty beat 'em up cards, but there's some that I find are a bit harder. They have the old score this if none of your fighters are taken out of action. It's worth 3 glories. Oaths still unfulfilled, or oaths still to fulfill. Those are tricky. It's that the old win more. So if none of your guys are out, you're doing kind of all right. So yeah. I find there's some other ones that are having all your models in enemy territory. I think that's doable, the unstoppable advance cards. So that's something that in my orc deck, I like just running them and keeping them in your opponent's zone, and you just kind of that's what they do. So I think that's that. I mean, there's some that's if all your fighters and no enemy fighters are holding objectives, that's hard. That's tough to get, especially with the Skaven being,
Yeah, I guess it depends who you play, but yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, you got to build knowing that you're gonna probably face anything, right? You got to do your all comers list. So something like that, I think, just having the Skaven be a thing, it's just they can go in your backfield so easily and just sneak onto an objective. Then you'd have to have a card to knock them off. So I don't know. It's and hope that they don't knock you off objectives. So I find things that rely on your opponent not being able to do stuff to you is, I think they don't survive the test of battle very well, right?
Yeah. How about some of the other kind of upgrades and employs?
Let's see.
I like Grimnir Speed. Makes him move +2. So if he's inspired, that's a 5-move killer and killing machine, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's like all of Grimnir, his that's insane. His I love his what's called the one that Grimnir gets the I call it the 5-up invul. So an action that would take him out of combat, you roll a shield, which is basically a 5-up, and
and he has one that gives him +1 defense, so he can roll 2 shields and then have a 5-up invul basically. Yeah.
That's where he gets nuts. Once you give him the Grimnir's Fortitude for the extra defense dice, then you give him the Grimnir's Blessing and the Speed, and what's the other one that he's got? I think those are these 3 that are specific to him. But I mean, increasing their move action by 1 if they charge is great. Each time you make an attack, you can reroll a dice with one of the upgrades. That's awesome too. Sweet. So I'm less of a fan of the specific ones for the other characters. The Tef one and the Milgrim one and the.
I like the one that gives Milgrim the returning axe that gives him the 3 hex. Yeah. It's basically a shake glass darts, but it doesn't go away after you use it. So I like that one.
It crits on an extra damage too. Like if you get a crit, you get an extra damage. But that's not bad if you're gonna sit them on something. Like
yeah. Great Swing is okay. It targets all adjacent enemies. That's always useful when you have a smaller warband. And with 2 damage, you could take out a bunch of skeletons in one blow. Yeah, but Grimnir's like going to be your go-to killing machine. I would say your first upgrades, if you can, you put them on him once he's inspired.
And what I would probably do is then a lot of the other upgrades I would probably just tend to favor the old trusty extra wounds, extra movement, because I think there's 2 extra movement cards now. So just bank on movement, bank on brute strength, bank on maybe Soul Trap. I think if you're gonna is it Soul Trap? The one that basically lets your guy come back to life. I kind of would if you're gonna stack upgrades on Grimnir, then might as well have an opportunity to bring him back from the dead. Maybe even that. I'm starting to really like that cursed artifact one, the one that gives you -1 wound but +1 to defense. So imagine this guy with you're rolling a 3 defense dice or something
Yeah, it'll be very
hard
sweet to heal. Yeah. Ploy wise, a lot of the ploys do help them to stay on objectives. So we shall not be moved means that next attack action doesn't take you off an objective. You've got movement 1, so this one, a friendly hider, push a friendly fighter 3 hexes as long as they end up on an objective, which is awesome.
That's what's that one called again?
It's called Treasure Lust.
Yeah, that one's again a great one for getting that first turn inspiration. Yeah.
Earth Shakes is another push 1 fighter 1 hex.
Which is awesome. Because that's again any fighter, so you can knock people off of stuff. You can knock yourself back onto stuff. So
I really like this one, Piercing Stare. Choose an enemy fighter that cannot make an attack or charge action, which is great.
It's huge. Yeah, because then if you're in the quote unquote mirror match, if your opponents feel Grimnir is super duper, then all of a sudden you pierce Stare's ass, and then he can't do anything. So
yeah. Especially if you set them up. They set themselves up on the last activation of the turn to attack you, and then you're like, nope, and then it's no.
And that's where then a card all of a sudden a card that maybe people that weren't using Misdirection before is all of a sudden, I think, a very viable card to keep in your deck.
The one that says no more ploys for the rest of the phase.
No, that one's great too. But Misdirection is just play this when a friendly fighter is chosen by ploy. You just choose another friendly fighter. So you're just fine. You can Piercing Stare. Mad Megrim.
You can just see that happening in the game. The guy would be ing, and then be nope, ing over there.
And it's magic. Counterspell. You having fun yet?
Living Wall is cool. You push 2 fighters a hex as long as they end up adjacent.
Yep. It's nice.
Yeah. So they have some cool cards.
Yeah, there's that one. There's basically they have their own healing potion, Urgold Boon.
Yep.
I think for the healing potion is great for them, the Stormcast, the orcs, things with big multi-wound characters, they're stuff that you can't one shot reliably. I think. Yeah, it's great.
Let's talk about some of the generic cards.
I forget which ones come in that. So I've kind of just they've all been pooled together in this big sort of mess of stuff. So maybe we can wrap it up. We'll do maybe Skaven first and then do the generics, or do you want to do the generics that are specific to this deck? I don't really know which.
Yeah, I got the list here. I think the most useful one out of the generics was Precise Use of Force.
Oh, the objective.
Yeah. So this you score immediately if you take someone out, but you've used enough damage to take it out, which is great. Well, it's great for everybody, but especially for these kind of 1 and 2 damage sort of dangle bros.
Because you can all of a sudden get glory from a 1 damage thing, and most of your army, most of these war bands, at some point in the game you'll have the dude that does 3 damage, the dude that does 4 damage, the dude that does 2. So it's I've every time that I've used it, I've reliably scored it. It's never a dead card. You always get a chance to use it. So it's so good. I love it.
Since I, for whatever reason, like to play objective holding decks, obviously the Tactical Genius cards are good. So they're 1 to 3, and in the other deck is 3, 4, 5. So for 3 glory, so that's pretty good. Obviously that. You need a certain kind of deck to play cards like that, but if you do play those kind of decks,
I still like Supremacy is just like much easier to get because it's about the same thing as just hold 3 objectives. It doesn't specify, and it's also 3 glory.
No, is it 3 glory? Oh,
yeah,
3 glory.
Yeah. That's why I find it's just like you don't have the like the heartbreaking thing is that you'll have like, oh cool, I can get like 1 and 2 and 3 reliably, but I can't get 5 or something. Like there's always like there might be one that. However, I think for Skaven that might be, that feels like it's more. It's a good play for them. So it might be.
Yeah, a couple more cards that I like. This one's called Tantalizing Prize. Your fighter can move 2 more hexes as long as they end up on an objective. That is a sweet card.
I used it with the skeletons. I thought that was really cool because I had like a little like harvester that moves like 2, and all of a sudden he's like he just like runs halfway across the field.
Yeah.
Great.
Ready for action or reaction after you upgrade somebody, they can make a move or attack is a great card too.
Yeah, and anything like I think people kind of know this by now, but like anything that lets you fight or bash or do whatever like. Just immediately, not like out of action, so you can get like two sort of attacks in one activation. Like that's so big, and it's such a gotcha card. Like people will set it up, and then like you just get like really you get a beat down for a turn. So
yeah, and I guess we're gonna get the elephant out of the room done, but Earthquake is in this set. So for those of you who haven't heard much about this card, it was greatly debated. And whether it would quote-unquote break the game or not. But basically, Earthquake is a ploy, push all fighters 1 hex, and they all have to go the same direction. So that can be obviously very powerful. You can see how that would really screw up a first action phase of some dwarves who've set up 3 people on 3 objectives, and then you Earthquake them all off. And some people think that this is a must-take in all decks at the very least, to counter other person's Earthquakes. Which I don't know because you'd have to have it at exactly the right time. But
to be honest, I just like I'm terrible at this game. But I've always taken it out all the time. Like I've put it in and like it's always the first card to go because maybe like the types of decks that I play don't really care much about that. But I think it is important. I think in a tournament setting you're putting it in to mess with. To mess with a Stormcast objective holding deck or it's more to mess with your opponents. I wouldn't put it in my deck to worry about getting myself back onto objectives. I would just play it because I know some people kind of like put all their characters like 1 hex away and then they wait at the end of the turn and they Earthquake themselves onto the objectives, which is like it's a thing that I've seen that people use to you play around it, and I think that's cool. But then, how do you know that they do have it or not? And you're almost like it's the fear of the Earthquake is worse than the Earthquake itself. So I think just be ready for it, and then it'll happen once, and then it might it's definitely a harder pill to swallow for dwarves. So I mean, but you do have quite a few things that push you back on. So I think I would rather have those push cards because they're more universally useful. Moving everyone is okay, but I think moving because if you have a push card, you can move someone towards you, you can move someone away from you, you can move yourself somewhere. So I would rather, take the Earthquake out and put another one of those push cards in. But
everyone would love the ultimate setup where your opponent's on 3, your 2 of your guys are just the right direction away from your own 2 and Earthquake. Sure.
In theory, that's great. I mean, again, it's like going back to Theory Hammer, right? Like a lot of times, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that sounds like it would be great, but for everything to line up for that to happen on the turn that it needs to happen, and the card to be in your hand, like you're just kind of lining up a lot of planets, right? So I think put it in the deck. I think it's great, but don't. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's just it's something. It's an arrow in the quiver, and if you. I think there's some other cards that I just like more that I could like. I don't like playing around. What is my opponent gonna do to maybe mess up my plan? I'd rather just like stick to my plan. And if they try to move me around, well, I have ways to move back on the objectives if I have to.
Well, my thought about Earthquake on a more existential level is that it's really the first card we've seen that affects all fighters.
Yeah,
and so you wonder whether each expansion now is going to have one card that does that.
It's like a hurricane, like
yeah.
At least it's not damage. Like if it was like everything takes one damage. I think early on, I think people were kind of afraid that you play Earthquake with Shattering Terrain and you move everyone a hex, and then you Shattering Terrain, so everyone takes the damage for being moved. But that doesn't work that way, because I thought that would be brutal. Like, especially if like Skaven or Skeletons, and you don't care about taking a little bit of damage, but you can just put a wound on all of your opponent's stuff. Like,
yeah.
But and then there's a lot of other great cards, I think, in that set.
Yeah, so the I think this is the third piece of Cataphragne's relics, the locket.
Third and fourth, I think. I think we're missing the
fourth is in the Skaven.
You need 6.
You need 6 to get to the 4 glory.
That's kind of what you're chasing, right?
Yeah.
So on eventually on Skaven and the Skeletons, I think that can be cool. Like, you have like one like insane character with like all that stuff on them. Like, it'd be great. So.
Yep. And then we have the quite useful Shade Glass Axe.
Those the new Shade Glass weapons, like the 3 damage and it's the 3 damage one, right?
Well, the Shade Glass Axe is 2 damage, but you can throw it for 3 squares.
Right. Yeah.
That's a nice little upgrade for your Dangle Bros. And then another key. So now there's 3 keys, not including the Skaven deck, but it's 3 keys, and there will be 4 keys. So keys for those particular objective decks. So that's kind of the
keys are key. They were also the key to victory for that Grand Clash deck.
Keys are key. Yeah.
I mean, they're great. Yeah, it's getting glory in something that isn't an objective, and I think there's it's like Daylight Robbery or some of these other sort of get glory for doing something that isn't. So you're basically you're loading up more win conditions in your upgrade slots, which is kind of a neat way of going about it if you can do it.
Okay, Phil. So any further thoughts about the Fyreslayers Chosen Axes?
I think they look super cool. They're great. I think my sort of the way that I see their strengths, but I see their weaknesses. I think Skaven and even Khorne, I think will do well against them. I think they do. I think they're tough against Stormcast. Is going to be they seem like they would be strong against Stormcast. And I think with Orcs, they're kind of in an interesting matchup where they're kind of just made to smash into each other. So
4 players each.
And that would be Gurzag versus Fjorl.
So who's stronger, Gurzag or?
I'm gonna say I say Gurzag because he's an Orc. And I just think Gurzag's awesome.
Biased.
But I actually think that kitted out Fjorl is like he's actually more he's more survivable in a lot of ways because of the extra defense dice and stuff. So blood-soaked beard on Garrick, like anything that lets you get that extra defense dice is like, that's really good.
Yep. And we'll come to another version of that when we talk about Skaven, which we'll talk about now. So Skaven, of course, is Spite Claw's Swarm, and the leader, of course, is Scritch Spite Claw, and then there's the Almost Trusted, and then there's 3 Skaven Dangle Bros. So there's
the Festering Skaven, the Hungering Skaven, and the Lurking.
That's right. So there's 5 Skaven in total. Their thing is that they are the fastest warband. They move so 5, fast. Which you might think is not super fast, but it is fast. Like,
it's lightning.
You can't discount these guys from just suddenly being where you thought that they could not get to.
With that one that doubles your movement for a turn, like you can literally have a Skaven
the whole board. Yeah,
12 hexes if he's got any other bonuses. So
most of them dodge. The Lurking Skaven, in fact, has 2 dodge. Is the first person to have 2 dodge, and they all get 2 dodge when they inspire. And 2 dodge may not sound that good, but it does make them way more survivable.
It's where you're fishing for crits, right? Like, I mean, any critical save is huge. So
yeah, and then most of them are weak, just 2 damage each. Crick is 3 and Scritch is 4, and when they're inspired, they don't get any tougher. But what's interesting is, when Crick inspires, he goes to 2 shields, which is pretty good. They're all fairly non-killy. Crick is 2 damage, and Spikelaw does 2. Spikelaw does go up to 3 when he inspires. Now, the key, the trick for inspiring these guys is that they have to be targeted by a ploy, which is very interesting. So the ploy has to say choose a fighter.
They have to be chosen for a point, and that's what people tend to make the mistake. It's the wording is very clear. It says choose a fighter, and the second you choose a fighter, it activates. Whereas some like let's say like bone shrapnel, it's a skeleton spell. It says play this attack after an action, takes out a friendly fighter out of action. The fighter that took them out suffers 1 damage. Because you don't choose, because it works like you can inspire your enemies, Skaven, but this one doesn't say choose, so it doesn't get to inspire from.
Yep. And obviously that's anybody who plays a ploy on them, not just you. But and the other mechanic that they have is that Scritch can res, just like the Sepulchral Guard, but he can res your guy onto any starting square, even your opponents.
That is a mind F, because he can't raise his bodyguard, he can't raise himself, but the 3 other generic Skaven, like he can raise them, and they do keep their upgrades when they come back to life,
just like the guard.
And what's different with the guard is that they can deploy in your opponent's zone, and when they show up, they have 5 movement. So like that's the other thing. That's where like all of those supremacy, getting all those like objectives, like. They will go into your backfield and they will get your objectives, especially if you're, the kind of the stoic stormcast, dwarf, even orcs, like slow moving. Bands.
So these guys take objective play to a whole new level. All those cards which are hard to do with guard because you can't get to your opponent's objectives now become so reachable by the little Dango Bros that you sniped off in the first round. Boom! Now it's in your back line. It does a number on the old denial and containment sort of strategy, because all it takes is 1 activation to screw up your 2 game winning objectives. And for parties, for warbands that like to push and hold you in your zone, so Stormcast, Orcs, and probably Dwarves, it screws that too, because now you have to go back and deal with, if you can get there in time, deal with rats in your back zone. So it really has flipped, I think, how people play, right?
Yeah, and in a very good way, because you if you're not ready for them, they will surprise you, because they're kind of they're surprising, and they're surprising warband to play against. And for me, what cemented what I like to play now, which is like the bloodbound guys, like the bloodbind are just perfect for for killing Skaven. So they kind of there's like, again, everything kind of like balances itself out in this game, but they do have a great strength against certain warbands. So if you play them a certain way, if that warband is played a certain way, and you're a good Skaven player, like you can really mess around with people's expectations. So
okay, well, let's go over some of the cards from the expansion, starting with some of the faction specific ones. I mean,
the what's called the
objective cards.
Objective cards. It's interesting because I don't like. They're kind of like the skeletons. I find the skeletons, and if I look at my binder of cards that aren't in decks, because I have a binder where I keep all my cards, and I have the ones that are in my decks. I find like for the Sepulchral Guard, like a lot of the faction specific objectives stay in my binder. Like I don't tend to run a lot of them in the. Yeah. And I think with these guys, it's kind of the same. Like I don't feel like I would prioritize their objectives, except like stuff like Scritch is the greatest. Like your enemy leader kills someone. I like that because they have a lot of like these sort of. If you're getting your butt kicked, you get some glory. Like if your only surviving friendly fighter is your leader, you get 2 glories at the end of the 3rd phase. Yeah, it's like
that's you can't plan for that. It just happens.
Yeah, or you plan that you've given up already 4 glory to all your other dudes.
I don't. I gotta say I don't like I don't run any of their specific objectives. My current deck is mostly holding objective cards. Scritch is the greatest. Yes.
Yeah.
And, like Supremacy, things like that. Precise Use of Force is a great card. So, it's stuff like that. I don't run any of their faction-specific objective cards. Didn't find them very impressive at all.
I'm looking at, let's see.
Well, other than Scritch is greatest.
Yeah, actually, like a lot of them, so the ones that I did put in my deck, I misread them. Like there's like Numberless Swarm, which I thought was good, but it's like if all 5 friendly fighters are on the battlefield at the end of the third end phase,
for one
you get
glory,
one glory. Like that's like tough. I don't mind like Arm's Length is all right. Like you can score this immediately, which is I think is a very important game mechanic. When you can score immediately, it just shuffles through your objective deck faster. So this one is if your warband takes an enemy fighter out of action while they are adjacent to none of your fighters. So basically, if your
Scritch takes them out.
Yeah, Scritch takes them out, or basically Scritch takes them out. So that but if you have you can kind of combo that up with Scritch is the greatest. So
so Scritch is interesting because he has the 2-range attack. Is another kind of warden, like the warden dilemma. So he's your strongest killer, but you need him. So how aggressive do you play him? That's the balance of playing Scritch,
Well, and we saw that in our sort of our play testing, right? Like because you ran him up a few times, but with good backups, where you could kind of activate him twice or stuff like that. But a few times, the second that he goes out. And because he can be made very survivable, but if he
gets
flubs on his 3 or 4 defense dice, and then he's dead.
So it's always a balance of trying to use that power for good. But the advantage he has over the Warden, of course, is that he moves 5 and the Warden only moves 2. So that's a big advantage. But they're otherwise fairly similar. So that's always the balance. I think if you're going to play Spike Claws, is learning how to properly use Scritch, because he's your strongest guy, but he's also vital to a lot of the functioning of the Skaven.
But I've seen the other, which while we're going to talk about, while we're on the topic of builds and stuff, I've heard, interesting strategies too, is also using one of your lesser, your festering Skaven or one of your kind of like chump guys, and then just like kitting them out to be these like massive like juggernauts that just like deal 5 damage and roll 5 dice and hit everyone in range and stuff. So you can turn them into these missiles, and then they go and they die, and then they pop up in your enemy's deployment zone and they go after something else. And I think that's like that would be terrifying for a Stormcast player or a Dwarf player or an Orc player, that you have this dude that will not die, that always comes back. Like you can kind of get 2 good, 2 good nukes out of this, this.
Yeah. So moving on to deploys, the key I find with Spike Claws is you need ploys that target them so that you can inspire them. Like it's really good if you can inspire Scritch in the first action phase, because then he becomes a 3 damage dude. And he gets that much harder to kill because he rolls 2 defense dice. So it's trying to pick ploys that have that choose word in them that are actually useful, though. And there aren't that many, actually, that you would think. In their own stuff, I mean, they have a few ploys that are okay. I like Nervous Scrabbling, that lets you, it's like a confusion that lets you switch 2 players, one of which is chosen, so that would inspire your dude. And Scratching the Shadows is good. That's your sort of terror scream, push the enemy fighter, but that doesn't inspire you.
Confusion is the only one that lets you basically inspire two of your characters. If you want to use confuse, you put Scritch and Crick next to each other, and then you confuse them, and then they're both inspired. So that could.
So they did gain their own personal version of Sprint. So sudden skittering doubles the move, and they can't charge or activate again. So you could have both of those cards in your deck, and so 2 of your Skaven could end up moving 10 squares, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, and that's that surprise. That surprise. I'm gonna grab whatever objective I want that isn't held right.
They got their own version of the instant res that the skeletons have. There are always more. Lets you res your fighter.
And you choose them, so you choose them. so you res them, and they're upgraded at that point.
Yep. So the and that's kind of all their decent sort of personalized ploys. But of course, they benefit a lot from a lot of the generic ploys.
That they do,
sidestep, and a curious inversion, which makes their double dodge into double shields. That can be obviously quite good.
Curious inversion is I find it's really fun. Like I don't know, it's one of those again a surprise card where, and especially good against, it's good for Skaven against an orc or a stormcast, so that when they're attacking you, they're hitting you on swords, you're protecting on shields.
There's a big debate right now on TGA about Time Trap in Skaven, if it's a useful card or not. I think Time Trap's probably semi-useful for any warband, but it's just how you use it, and the timing is the key to Time Trap.
Time Trap, I remember when I first read it, I thought, oh, that was the game-breaking card. But having been on the receiving end of it, a lot of time you get your double. You get your double, but you got to make sure that your double is better than your opponent's double, because a lot of times, like, you'll get a double, and if you flub on your the attack that you need, then all of a sudden, your opponent gets to like wail on you twice. So so it is a very high risk.
And then, I really like, sort of going off the Skaven, back to the dwarves, I like Tantalizing Prize from the dwarf deck. That's the one that lets you move an additional 2 hexes if you move onto an objective. So now you got a 7-move rat screeching across right through the middle field between your fighters onto your objective.
Yep. Whenever you can play around their strength, board placement does play a big part of it. If you get the wide board and you get to put you don't get the little chokehold. Like the chokehold really it sucks to get chokehold, I think, with these Skaven. But if you get the wide board where you have like this giant open pasture to run anywhere you want, like you're feeling pretty happy. So
let's go on to some of their more personalized upgrades. First up is Bodyguard for a price. Now, what do you think of this card, Phil? So this goes on Crick, and if Crick is adjacent to Scritch, Scritch is always on guard, basically, which makes Scritch, if he's inspired especially, makes him extremely hard to kill.
I like it. I think it's great, because I do like the idea of stacking a lot of defensive stuff on Scritch, and he like that one that lets him roll an extra dice on basically if he's got a dodge, he can like acrobatic, I think.
Yeah, so where's acrobatic, by the way? I was looking for it. Is that
acrobatic? Is, I don't know. It's in one of the newer ones, but because that's an upgrade that lets you, if you have a dodge, you get to roll an extra dice, or if you have a shield and you're on guard, you get an extra dice. So I think with that guy, you have like 3.
So if you put acrobatic on Scritch, he rolls 3 dice, and then you put guard on him too, and he literally becomes very hard to kill. And in most cases, if you're if he's already sitting next to the other guy, then I mean the trick is you just kill Crick. But if you kill Crick, you're not killing Scritch, and if you're not killing Scritch, then that's a good thing for you too. So Crick inspired already has 2 shields, so he's not that easy to kill either.
Yeah. So that, I mean, if your dice are hot and you're rolling a lot of those critical saves, like you can take the wind out of people's sails pretty quickly. So
yeah, my first game with the Skaven, literally, they just tanked everything. Like nobody could hit me. It was against orcs, right? Like, and that's the worst for an orc player. Like orc player, you want things to die so you can get the glory and upgrade. And if they're not dying, then you're having a bad day. Yeah. So I like Flee. So this is an upgrade. It's not in my deck, but it's an upgrade that goes on Scritch, and basically him and one adjacent fighter. So if you're playing the style where Crick is always next to him, they can both make a move action. But it has to be away from the enemy fighter. So it's kind of situational, but it's an interesting card. But it wasn't good enough to make my deck, but it's an interesting card.
Yeah, I don't rate it. It's because of the move further away from all enemy units. So it's fine if you're like if you're face to face, but the second you have someone that kind of is looping behind you, then you're forcing to move, and you're forcing everyone to move. Like it's still, everyone will be taking a move action, right? So you're getting 2 move actions. You can kind of run away, but I don't know. I don't think that you want to run away all that much. I don't think you play defensively with them. You kind of do like this weird mix of, you're trying to grab objectives. You're trying to grab, like, it might be like an equivalent of what's that one, like the one that I like to use, where you run, you charge, you attack, and then you can bring your character back into your deployment zone there. What's it called?
I can't remember what it's called, but I know it.
Shifting image or something.
No, illusionary fighter.
Yeah, illusionary fighter. Like it's kind of like that. You can kind of run in, fight, but you have to be adjacent to the other guy. So I don't know. It's like there's a lot of like, and then you have to, and then you have to, and then you have to. So
I like Skitter Scurry. So this goes on Scritch or Crick, and it's a upgrade, but it's a reaction. When you do something with that, make an action, you can push them an extra hex.
And I love that.
Which is
so
nice.
That I think is better than like a flee, because so any action that you attack, you attack and you move. I think the only thing you can't do is a charge. Any action. So I think you can charge and still skitter scurry afterwards, right? Like you move an extra one. You attack, you move. You can kind of like dodge around. You can move them up the line, right? Like that's huge. So. And
then the final kind of personalized upgrade that I like is throwing stars that goes on your lurking Skaven. Turns them into a 3-square sniper. So anything that makes your Dango Bros a little bit more threatening is cool in my books, because they're otherwise just objective grabbers.
I still prefer like those shade glass ones. I know like they're probably not the best on things you can res, because like once they blow up and they're done. But I don't know, or that sword, the 4 damage sword. There's like that one. It's one of the. I think it's Hungering Skaven. He gets that like AOE effect that he hits everyone in, like friend or foe around him. You give him like that sword, like that 4 damage sword.
Hero Slayer.
Yeah, just drop him in there and then swing around, try to get everyone.
Yeah, so Black Hunger on the Hungering Skaven makes gives him +1 damage and targets all adjacent fighters, friend and foe. And no support. But then, so when you put the Hero Slayer on him, Hungering Skaven becomes a little bit of a killer. I will play that it might not be the best. It might be stupid, but I like giving some bite, and I think that gives bite to like some nameless jobber that then you give him like any of them these sort of. Maybe not like demon weapon or something. I think he'll kill himself before he can finish attacking everyone. But yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to generic cards from the Spite's Claw Swarm expansion. Fancy any of these cards here, Phil?
Is that the one that has what's it called, like redirect or rebound?
Yeah, we're getting there. So we'll just do the objectives first. That's not an objective. I like Cover Ground. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a move action of 6 or more hexes. There's lots of ways for Skaven to do that, and it's a score immediately card. So I really like that one for Skaven.
I'm doing that thing that you're. There you go. In the expansion, I see.
Yeah. The easiest way to look at cards is to go to warhammerunderworlds.com card library. Good. Good.
I was flipping through my binder like a chump, but
they also have a deck builds page, but it doesn't let you store your own deck builds, which would have been so good. Maybe that's coming, but because as of yet, it would be nice if there was a way to store your deck lists.
Yeah.
I like Escalation, and you pointed out to me how awesome Escalation is.
Oh, it's huge. You should put that in all of your decks.
Score this in an end phase if 3 or more upgrade cards were played in the preceding action phase. Not by you, by anybody. 2 glory.
I know. Look at that. 2 glory.
So good.
Yeah, it's you're gonna get it. There's a bunch.
Master of War is decent. Score this in an end phase if you scored an objective, played a ploy card, and played an upgrade in this round.
Yep.
It's only 1 glory, but it's like a kind of...
Yeah. I like all the, immediately, right? There's some like Miraculous Escape kind of is like if someone chucks 3 dice at you and they fail,
and they fluff,
score a glory. I mean, like I don't like counting on someone to fail. Like no more tricks if you use all your power cards. I'm not, that's not that great.
Yeah. Now, Overextended is basically another Claim the City.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't specify how many objectives you have to hold. You just have to hold every one. And there are There's one.
You can
or is there
pillage.
two
I think
cards that kill objectives.
Yeah, pillage is remove one objective, and
You can move them, shifting sands, and your warband is so fast. So this is claim the city, and this card are doable now.
I would just throw it. I mean, like, it's worth like so much. Like, so you could try. Like, I mean, I don't mind if it's like your one. Like, I don't mind having one big, go big or go home card. Just like, in case you might be able to do it. So
yeah. The only issue is if you draw in your first turn, it's basically a dead card.
Yeah. I mean, most of these, like, score at the end of the third round. Like, if you open your hand with that, I do tend to chuck them. Unless, it's usually worth chucking them. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a strategy question.
The bigger they are is okay. If you kill somebody, you can score it immediately, and if you kill someone with a damage characteristic of 1, but that does usually require some setup. Of course, there's Tactical Genius Part 2, which is Tactical Genius 3 to 5. And then those are the only generic objectives there. So there's a few decent ones in there. Yeah,
I mean, like, Alone in the Darkness is cool. It's like 2 glory, but no one needs to be adjacent. And I think, like, because I think we read it once, or someone interpreted that it was like, if none of your characters are adjacent to each other, that's okay. But your opponent has control over that. So yeah.
Or we'll go on to deploys. There's some interesting ones in this set. So Curious Inversion. So what this does basically, for the next attack action in the next activation, hammers turn to swords, and dodges turn to shields, and vice versa. Yeah. Now, this initially is not as powerful as I thought initially, because it just applies to attacks, obviously, and so if your opponent could just decide to do something else first. But it can also be used in your phase, where you can control what is happening. So I think that's probably more powerful in that respect.
I like it more as a defensive card.
What I find is that it does kind of change what your opponent does the next activation. If you could think that they were intending to charge you with a hammer guy, now you play that, now they're like, maybe I'll wait.
I'll get you with the sword guy.
Yeah. So,
like, but it's still like, you would play that against, like, it's more of a, your storm, like the heavy hitter, Stormcast, like all the heaviest hitting characters are the hammer folks, right? So so you kind of do that. I mean, it's okay. I haven't actually put it in any of the decks that I think would be useful. Like, I didn't bother with in the skeletons or in the corn deck. I think there's other stuff that I like more. So
yeah.
It is tough. Like, I mean, there's there's a whole other discussion, but there is merit to starting to bulk out these decks past the 20 card minimum. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of, like, good card draw now, like, or decent card draw that lets you like, cycle through like 26 cards more reliably. So once you start getting into a bigger deck, then that might be useful. But not in 20. Like, it's tough with only 10 slots for these things. Like,
Claim the City was talking about going 24 card sort of deck. And
I think I'm gonna be testing that out. Like, there's enough ways to, like, there's some good cards to help you do that. So
the next one is Rebound. So this is a reaction. When an enemy attack would succeed, roll a defense dice 30% of the time. So with a dodge or a crit, the attacker suffers the damage rather than you, and you don't get driven back.
It is backbreaking.
So good, because they don't get to save it. They just suffer it.
And in my it's like it has, like, there's a corn guy getting it in this the poor Targor is getting stab inches, but I think in my corn deck it's awesome. Like, it's, again, whatever. It's not always, and I do like the rolling ones, but if you have that Tefk goes after your blooded sake or whatever, rolls, you think you're going to kill your guy, and then all of a sudden you bust out the rebound, and you get
and your opponent can't stop you, because this is a reaction, and as you get to play a reaction first because it's not your turn. So this is basically a 33% chance of insta-giving himself.
And on top of that, it's, we're talking about, like, actions out of sync, or actions out of, you're doing an action for free, basically. So I think the gamble on this, the 32%, for what it does, like, it's like, it's very strong. Like, it's so strong. So,
and not only is it an extra action, but it may be an action that you could not have done. My Dango Bro is not going to kill Gurzag, But if he does 4 or 5 damage to himself, he just kills himself.
Yeah, and a Gurzag or whatever would do 4 damage, exactly. 4 or 5 damage when he hits, because you're stacking them up. So you kind of, you keep that one in your hand and you wait for the right opportunity.
Your juiced up Grimnir coming to smack my Dango Bro with 5 damage is about to die. 33% chance of him dying, and it would have taken me 3 activations to kill him otherwise.
It's pretty sweet. Rethink strategy is a nice one. I think this is one of those cycling card drawing types. But,
I do like that.
If you're stuck with a crap hand, you can kind of towards the end of the game, I think it's a little bit.
Otherwise, you got to wait till the end phase to cycle your objectives. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've also found that if you're playing your deck well or you're playing your game right, you will cycle through your objectives fast enough. Usually it's I think in the last couple of games that we've had, it's been rare that I've had maybe you'll have 1 objective card left in your objective deck. You do tend to burn through those cards if your deck's built efficiently. So
okay, Sacrificial Pawn. Choose a friendly fighter. If they're taken out of action in the next activation, you gain a glory. What do you think of this, Phil?
It's glory out of an objective deck, so I think it is good for certain decks. I wouldn't play it. There's a lot of decks that I wouldn't play it, but a Skeleton, a Skaven, like things that you want your dudes to die. I don't think I would put it in the Khorne deck, but
I don't think it works as well when there's too many targets. Right, so for skeletons, fine, I won't kill that one Dango Bro, I'll go kill the other one. But it's definitely a way of deterring people from trying to attack your leader, although I think it's probably still worth it to attack
it's totally worth it, yeah.
But so it's got its uses. There's potential there if you use it well.
It's more of if you're going to send, those Scud missiles, if you're going to send your skeleton champion in the thick of it, it's the type of character that would die anyway. You send it up there, you put him in base to base with three other a couple of other fighters, and say, well, he's there now, so you want to try to take him out. If you take him out, then I get glory, you get glory. We're kind of at a glory standstill, and I get to bring my guy back. It's I think in certain situations you would use it, certain you wouldn't.
So Spoils of Battle.
I am taking that one out of the decks that I have.
Oh, yeah? So this one says play an upgrade card doesn't cost you a glory point. Yeah, but I don't think that allows you to play an upgrade card until you have scored at least 1 glory, though. Because I believe the rulebook says you can't play any upgrades until you score at least a glory.
I think this would override it.
Really? It doesn't say that.
Yeah, the general...
It just says it doesn't cost you a glory. But the basic rule says that you can't play an upgrade until you score the glory.
Interesting. Oh, so that's in the rule book, eh?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought you needed. I thought it was you need to have glory because the scenario where this is the best is when you open you have an open hand, you might have a slow turn, and you can still upgrade something. I think it's that's when I would want to use it, is when I don't have access to glory. If you're kind of really really boned, because every time that I've seen them drawn that card, it's that turn 2 and I've got 6 glory or 4 glory, or there's always I have enough glory to upgrade everything, and it's felt like dead weight a lot of times. So
okay, I need to check this because it's gonna
sure, yeah.
Okay, so I have the rulebook here under upgrade cards on page 23. To use an upgrade card, a player must have first earned at least 1 glory point. And this card doesn't say that it overrides that. It just allows you to play one without spending a glory, cost the glory, but it doesn't. But you still have to be able to play an upgrade card, I think.
Yeah, but no, I still think that it works as intended. You play an upgrade card, doesn't cost you a glory. But you can't play upgrade cards till you earn at least 1 glory point. But if you look at the way that charging is worded, when it says that if a unit charges, they cannot be activated again in the phase, right? And then there's some cards that say you can charge, upgrade this character, you can make an attack action, right?
Action, but that's not activation. They clarified that those two words are not.
That activation and action is different, whereas the intent is that if you have 0 glory...
We're not talking about the cost of the upgrade card here in the rulebook. It's just telling you can't play any upgrades until you've earned at least 1 glory point.
So this would be if you earned your first glory, you can spend
if
it.
you are
upgrade one thing,
eligible
and then
to
you
play
use this one
upgrades,
to this one to
then you
I
can
don't
play
know.
it for free.
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'm not 100% sure that mine is the correct interpretation of it. I think I'd be curious to see what they have to say about it.
Well,
And
as written,
FAQ
that
say?
is the interpretation, but intended, maybe not. That they need to FAQ that if they intended otherwise. But
Because this would be interesting, because then it would kind of mitigate the I mean, it's like the biggest advantage is that you have 0 glory and you immediately just get to upgrade something. Like, I think that's big.
yeah, but if you have 1 glory and you used it, and you
to do
can play
2
a second
things,
upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Like that happens in your first and second action phase for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and people who like to argue raw and intention.
Yeah.
You don't get to the second sentence because you don't fulfill the first sentence.
But right, because you say you can only play an upgrade if you have
play
play
an upgrade card. Well, you can't.
I see what you're doing there. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that definitely it needs to reference that rule that people it's not assumed. You assume that the only thing preventing you from playing upgrades is having to pay for them, but that's not the rule. The rule is actually you have to have glory to even think about starting to get upgrades. Interesting.
Yeah.
Get that ready for that tournament.
Well, it needs FAQ, right? Yeah. For sure. Acrobatics. So this is the one we were talking about earlier. It changes dodge. If the fighter has dodge or a shield, but if this fighter has dodge or has the shield and is on guard, they get an extra defense dice, which is very good. That makes our 2 dodge Skaven, 3 dodge Skaven, or a 3 dodge Crick. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's huge on that. And it's good too with Garrick. If you can get Garrick blood soaked and that, then also you're like, yep.
What do you think of Awakened Weapon? Reroll 1 attack dice every time you attack.
Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. Like I think it's good for like a Stormcast thing. I think that it fits nicely. I think I actually did put it in my Stormcast desk, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a Gurzak, like things that are already like hitting hard with what they have, I think is good. Yeah. So it's I like it.
Ethereal Shield, change defense characteristic to shield.
Nah, I don't think it's worth an upgrade.
Okay.
I think I'd rather get more dice rolls. Like it's like you're basically going from a 5 up to a 4 up.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, how about Hero Slayer?
I like that one. I'm not sure if I use it though, but I like it in conjunction with something else.
So Hero Slayer is a 1 hex attack, 1 hammer. So basically 50% chance of hitting, right? Because you got crits as well. 4 damage.
Yep.
It's very tempting to use.
The 4 damage is what is like the nutty, the nutty thing. What you need, I think, in order to to compensate for that is you need to either in conjunction with Mighty Swings. So you get the Hero Slayer, you get someone in there, and then you Mighty Swing, so you hit everyone in range. So if you can get like 2 or 3, shots at people, or that one that lets you attack twice, or the one that lets you, so you need to find a way to, be a little bit more reliable about how you, how you do it. Like if you're going to upgrade in the Corn deck, for example, if you get Frenzy on someone, so they roll an extra dice when they charge. So you're rolling extra dice, you charge with Hero Slayer, and if you can do Mighty Swing at the same time, then also you're rolling 2 dice at a few targets. So
yeah. Okay, we got Cataphragne's 4th relic is the Hood. So now with 4 relics, you can draw 2 power cards every time you make an action, which is a pretty nice little buff if you were going to go all that way.
Well, and you'd need that, right? If you're going to stack 4 or 5, 6 of these relics in your upgrade deck, it feels like you want to be cycling through. Yeah. You'll be going towards a 24 card deck in order to compensate for having all this dead weight, and you'll want to be cycling through it to get to the.
Yeah. Shade Glass Hammer is awesome.
Yeah.
1 hex, 2 hammers, 3 damage, +1 on a crit. So
Targor, Arnulf, it's whoever isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you get your one shot at like killing a lot of things.
The next one I like, but I'm not using because I think it's not that useful most of the time, is Shade Step. So there is a ploy in the core set, I think, that lets you know in the skeletons.
Yeah, it's
lets you move through people, but it's a ploy. This is an upgrade, so you can do it all the time. But
and I think one of the Corn guys does it too, right? Like
but it's fairly easy to move around people, especially if you move 5.
Yep.
It's not often that you get boxed that you have to move through people. So
unless you're skeletons, like it's like the slow movement, like, but you're not go like it's not. But for an upgrade, I don't like. As a ploy, it's okay. As an upgrade, I think that's a.
So Sprinter, another card that gives you +1 move, so that and legendary swiftness. Then another key, the fractured key, and
Trickster's Charm is kind of cool.
Charm,
right? So,
yeah. What do you think of Trickster's Charm?
Again, this is one of those cards that feeds into like I call it like the heavy ploy thing. So I don't know, you can cycle through your ploys faster. So you know.
Yeah.
So you at the beginning of each action. So you basically you.
But you need to pick this up in your opening hand. Otherwise, it's basically a dead card.
Yeah, because it's the beginning of each action phase is like the start of
right after the roll off, right?
Yeah. Or is it? No, it's not the beginning of each activation set. Yeah, so basically you get that in your first. So you have 2 shots.
It does give you that. It does give you that chance of playing that. You know how often you want to wish you're not going first, but you wish, or you are going first, and you wish you had the chance to play a ploy before you had to do something.
Oh yeah, like +1 damage. Oh, there you go.
So that lets you do that. But if you don't pick it up first turn, you play it then second turn, and then you can only use it once. So. Yeah. Yeah, I mean you can mill yourself until you get it. If it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those. But even if you get it, it's an upgrade too, right?
Yeah.
So you have to earn a glory first before you can play it, and so.
I don't like a card that is too dependent on if you. It's more like +1 damage. All right, here we go. This guy will always do an extra damage. Roll an extra dice. Cool. You always roll an extra dice. Move an extra movement. Get an extra movement. It's always going to be involved, right? Whereas this is, it can be cool. Like obviously, like someone can say, like, oh well, this. What if you're there and then you use this and then you sidestep at the beginning and you can use that. Like then we're like, well, I mean, sure, if all those things line up, that'd be amazing. But
okay, well, let's go forward. So, any final thoughts on Skaven?
I think they're like personally, I find they're exciting. I like. They're not. It's not a straightforward, easy faction to build. I think you can get punished pretty tough, but like if you play it a lot, you'll have a good time. I think they're really fun. Moving a lot is great.
I really just like the visceral feeling of moving 5 squares. It's awesome.
With the like the reavers and stuff. Yeah, it's amazing when you move, when you get to like you're speeding along. And I would actually just build like this Skaven, like and the Skaven feel like the Skaven should feel. And I think there's a way to build this deck. Like I want to try out this like lame deck where like everything is like rebound and that one that you steal glory from the opponent, and the one you break their upgrades, like just something that just feels very Skaven, where you're just using all the things to just like you just like basically take a dump on the other. You're not just like taking away things, and you're like being sneaky and you're being
funny,
and just like do like this like counterspell, misdirections, all this like stuff that just reacts and
it is pretty thematic feeling, like how they've designed it. I do like that.
So our next Shadespire thing, I'll just build this like I don't think it's gonna be a great deck, but I'll just build this like hilarious, sneaky, annoying Skaven deck. So it'll feel so good when you like catch them and just beat them up. And it'll feel so bad when they start to like, redirect everything and just.
So what are you going to play at the CanHammer Clash?
I don't know. I feel like I want to play a few more games with like I do want to try out the dwarves just to know them. I think playing the other factions lets you learn how to play against them too. So right now, if it was tomorrow, I would play Khorne.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, if it's tomorrow, I'd play. And with a bit more testing, I might lean Skaven. I did like the Skeletons a lot, but I don't think I'm ready for them. I need more practice. So
Yeah, I'm trying to decide between Skaven and Guard. Obviously, I played Guard a lot, and Skaven, I just feel like it gives me what Guard doesn't, which is the speed and the ability to res on the other side. So many times I want to do it with my Guard now that I know the other faction has it.
But Guard are like, they're such they're better fighters, right? Like that's the thing that's nice about them. Like, and that resing the champion at the end and sneaking in, you do have to build it like you come to me kind of thing. Like that's the Guard, motto. So I don't know.
Okay, we want to just talk quickly about the recent Warhammer World Grand Clash winner, who was Jay Clare, and he played Skaven actually. And this was only like weeks after the thing came out. Actually, wasn't it? It was pretty soon after it. So we don't have to spend too much time talking about it, but objective wise, he played Scritch as the greatest. He played Denial, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting in my mind, playing Denial. But I guess sort of making people turn around, maybe, to go back into their own zone. So,
I don't see Denial in that. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
I'm looking at objective card. Oh, am I missing something? No. Battle without end, determined defender, escalation, hold objective 1, 2, 3, 4, precise use of force, supremacy, technical genius 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, are you looking at a different deck?
I am looking at Warhammer World. Oh, Sepulchral Guard.
Oh,
skeletons. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm so used to this website. Yes, you're right. Denial.
So he plays Denial, so he must be depending on people turning around. Because I'm not sure how we could make that work otherwise. But obviously,
I think it's all right. You can all you have to do is kill, because you're fast, so you can go back and kill whoever is lingering around your zone, right? So
interesting. Yeah, Determined Defender is a card I play in my Skaven deck because it's very easy just to sit a Dangle Bro on an objective for 2 rounds. Escalation, so obviously we already discussed that. That's awesome. Yep. Hold objective 1 to 5, which I think is great in the Skaven deck. Making a statement, so score this in an end phase if you hold all objectives in your opponent's territory. 3 glory.
That's surprisingly easy for them to do too.
Yeah, but if you're playing against a faction where even one guy is sitting at the back of an objective, that becomes more difficult.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Like, it depends. Like if you're sitting on the 3 objective side or the 2 objective side, it makes a big difference. If like your opponent has the 2 objective side, then you're that's easy. And one of these objectives might actually be close to you. So I don't know. It feels like it's not as hard, because I thought that what's it called? I thought supremacy would be hard to get, and then I realized that it's actually that's fairly doable. So.
You could also just shifting sands an objective that the guy is holding onto your, because usually you res next to the objective and then you just shifting sand it onto you, and and that's 3 glory. That's a good swing. And that's not a third end phase objective either.
Yeah,
I should look into that. Ploy Master, of course, play 3 ploys in the phase, and Supremacy, which is a great card for Skaven. Especially for turn 1, scoring a Supremacy on turn 1 is easy and very nice boost. And
what you want to do too is, I think, in how people build their decks, him having all these like hold objective cards means he can like if you're playing someone that wants to out defend you. He's like, I'm going to sit on my objective like a guard player. Like, you're like, okay, I've got all 5 hold objectives. I'm going to hold all of these. And so like, it feels you can kind of, you got a good tempo in this, right? So I think you're, I think it looks pretty tight. I don't know what I would change, but.
So onto power cards, he's got Momentary Boldness. Choose a friendly fighter adjacent to 2 or more fighters. It can make a charge action,
which is great because, again, acting out of sync. So
Nervous Scrabbling, which of course allows you to choose a friendly fighter, so inspire someone and then switch places.
Yep.
Scratching in the Shadows, which is a push for the enemy.
Yep.
There's Orsmore as the res card.
Yep.
Bodyguard for a price. That's the upgrade on Crick that allows you to put him on guard. I don't know. I the times I've played I've not found it useful to keep them together. For one card. My guys are never together, so I don't have that in my deck. But
I would. Yeah, I think there's I would have a preference. I would definitely swapped that out for something else, it might have worked really well for him. So
I guess it just depends on how you intend to play those two guys. If you want to just run them around together, then
because he doesn't play like I don't know. Like I would I like taking chances. I would acrobatic over this personally.
But
like
you
if
could
it's
take acrobatic as well.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Because acrobatic would actually work because you're on guard. So
and then bodyguard makes him really hard to kill.
But bodyguard again is to me it's like it's one of those if cards. Like if Crick is alive and Scritch is alive, if they're standing next to each other, then he gets to go on guard. But then you can just take out Crick, and then
but Crick is harder to take out because he's
on shields
by default, and it almost kind of makes you have a little mini Death Star there. These two guys wandering around. They're pretty hard to kill, and they're the two killiest guys in the deck as well.
Yeah,
so it's funny. Skitter Scurry is the one that pushes you a hex after you make an action, which is great. Confusion, Earthquake, Misdirection.
Misdirection is huge in this. I think like I'm switching on to Misdirection is like. It's nice because like there's enough stuff now that can mess with your players that you need to kind of be able to mess back. So,
but you know why this is so good? Because it says choose. So you put a positive buff that your opponent just gave one of their guys, misdirect it onto one of your Skaven. They get buffed and they get inspired.
Is that how that works? Oh, cool. Yeah,
because it says choose another friendly fighter that could be chosen, and that fighter is chosen.
Yeah, so you're choosing. It's a double choose. It's double choose. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's pretty great. The sacrificial pawn is actually quite good in this. I think it's fun because you will lose your rats.
Oh, but it has to be on your friendly fighter. Okay, I thought it was going to take a buff that your opponent would put on one of them.
No. It's more like if they're gonna sidestep you, if they're gonna move you, if they're gonna do that piercing gaze. Like
interesting. Okay.
You then just shove that to somewhere else. So.
Yeah. Interesting. So sacrificial pawn, which I do like. Shifting Sands, which is great in an objective deck. Sidestep, great strength, legendary swiftness, shake glass darts, which is great. I guess you could choose that, or you could choose. It's interesting that he chose that instead of the Skaven version.
This one gives you +1 damage on crit. It's the same. It's basically 3/3/1. It's the same stats, but this one gives you +1 damage on crits.
Oh, I didn't.
It's a better version, but you can have. You got that, and then so you can have two sort of Hadoken guys.
Yeah, and then he plays Soul Trap. Probably on Scritch or Crick, and so now that makes your Death Star a little. So maybe he's running a little mini Death Star there. And then he has 4 keys. Ooh.
Yeah.
Bless you, sir. Any brains?
Yeah, no, not at the moment.
And he runs all 4 keys.
Yeah, the key is like these keys are like you can't. I think you go big or you go home, and I think having. He doesn't bother to with the. I think the skeleton way of doing the keys is that you have that you pay for that upgrade that lets you swap objectives.
Because you can get on any of them, right, by rezzing.
And you're so fast, you don't need to sit so much, right?
Skeleton is that you put a guy on an objective, you put this on them, and then you just swap it to the one that the key is. But that's like 4 steps to do that. Whereas these guys, you just put the key on anybody, and then by the end of the game, just make sure they get there.
Yeah, and then I would try to hold your keys, as long as you can, like when you can kind of use them. But yeah,
yeah, interesting, very interesting.
Like that last action phase where then you can start busting out the keys and saying, oh well, this guy's close to that one, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
You get this key, you get that key, you get a key, you get a key.
How many cards was this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think it looks like 7,
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so this is 20. Yeah. Okay, well, what do you think of this deck?
I think it's great. Like the ploys are awesome. Like the only thing that because I haven't tried it yet, but is that bodyguard for a price. So I mean, if it might just be amazing, and I'm not seeing it because I haven't played it. But like I don't know, I kind of like acrobatic over that one. So that's what I would probably change. But the rest is like nice. And I think Earthquake in this case works well because you have all of those keys and all of that. So you kind of, I think you're keeping that Earthquake as a defensive Earthquake. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's. I like this deck actually.
Yes, it's straightforward enough. Objective wise, might be one or two things to swap, here and there, season to taste, basically. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, you could play it and see how you like it, and then tweak stuff to fit your play style, right? Because I think that's the other thing with this game is that, you will find out things that you like playing that feel good to you, that feel like you're, that you like, and then just play to that. So
yeah, it's on the website here is also cool because they get the guy to write a little blurb about how the deck plays, and so so he runs Denial in that chance that he's playing like Skellies that stay at the back. In which case, then Denial becomes an easy score for
there you go.
The game. Yeah. So I really like how they write the.
There you go. He talks bodyguard for a price. Like if you're, bodyguard for a price might feel like a not obvious choice, but obviously, you're doing it wrong. But actually, he mentions bodyguard for a price is great for keeping Skrish alive longer. So I think,
but only if Crick's beside him.
Exactly. So I'd say, what I would do is I would just acrobatic. Then you're on three dice, and you don't care so much about the dodge. You care more about the crits.
Yeah.
And I think the crits tend to happen more often than you'd expect.
Yeah.
And you just one crit is like, boom, you're safe. Unless obviously the other guy crits you back.
No, I do like this deck. Make it a few changes, but I do like the base of it. I like the ideas and the reasoning behind the cards he chose. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, yeah, for sure. And he's probably played a lot. That's the thing. Like, it's he's tried it, and he's not.
He's not a new player that just made a deck and won the Grand Clash. Yeah.
No, there's some cool stuff to this.
So what do you think we're going to see in the meta? So I think there's a clash happening at Adepticon, right?
That'd be really interesting to see.
What do you think we're going to see coming to the top?
I think. I'll make a wager. I think Khorne, man. Like, I think this will show up. People will be like, get excited about like, oh, Skaven are going to be like great and this and that. And I think just like, to me, it feel like I look at this deck, I'm like, I'd feel pretty comfortable having a Khorne deck against this, and then matching the speed and having slightly better fighters. Except for, Target. So I think I would like to see my Khorne lists take that. In the way I run them, it is a hybrid sort of thing where I do have objective play and then a lot of kill stuff play, so I can kind of switch gears, like start the game slow and hold objectives for a bit, see what they do, and then go into the offense mode, or go in offensively, kill a bunch of stuff, and then once the other army's thinned out, then start holding objectives. So I think that would do well, because this deck definitely relies on objectives for scoring big glory. So I think that Khorne list is a good counter to something like this.
Cool. I think Skaven's going to win again.
Yeah.
I think they have too many tools and they're too slippery.
And they can bring them back. That's the drawback with Khorne is that you're, if you roll poorly and if someone takes out Sake and Garrick, you are kind of boned. So,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that review of those two warbands and a little bit of talk of the competitive meta right now and some recent winning lists. We're going to move on now to Q&A. So we do have a few questions that got posted up earlier today. So Ryan Pippi asks a general question. If he wants to start playing Shadespire, and we introduced Ryan to Shadespire like a few weeks ago, I guess it was. No, he played with us a while ago.
We played like a while back, and then we played again. And
That's right. So would he need a starter set and whatever warband he fancied? And he knows that to be the most competitive, you need to get all of them for all the cards. But just for your kind of casual player, what do you think people need to buy to start?
I think the starter set and the warband that you would like to play, I think is a good start, because the starter set has your objective cards, which are kind of used in a lot of decks. So I would say, like, if you really like Orcs, I would say buy the set, because you'll need like your tokens and you need your boards and you need stuff. So buy the set and the Orcs if that's what you want to do, or if you want to play Sepulchral Guard, but you'll find it like very quickly you'll start to want to play it all, or you'll want to get it all. Like it's a very kind of, it's insidious that way, because the game is very fun, and you want the tools to be able to build your deck.
But it's still relatively cheap for GW.
Yes, then that's the why you kind of allow yourself to do that. Is that
you could buy everything for like $200, which is you can't even buy like an 8th edition starter set for that. So
you can't buy a Great Unclean one.
You can't even buy it. So what I would say is that I think most people. So if you always playing with a person who has the starter set, then you don't necessarily need to buy the starter set. You could take some cards that they're not using. Obviously you can use all their tokens and boards and stuff, and fine if you're just playing casually. But if you're playing even slightly more serious than that, I think you need the starter set because you need your own tokens and boards and things. And especially if you're going to be competitive, for sure you need everything. Not least of which, pragmatically, when you go to tournaments, you need to bring your own counters and stuff. So. And
we did, like, I think we mentioned this last episode. I think when I started playing, I just got the orcs. That was my tasters. Like, do I like this game? I'll just buy the orcs and then play with that for a little bit. And then after like our first game, our first day of playing multiple games and going back home, going like, yeah, I'm gonna get the rest. Like, it was just test it. Don't buy everything at first if you're not gonna play it, but just start with something, and then if you like it, you will. It's not out of reach to get everything on a decent gaming budget. It's definitely less. I've spent definitely a lot less on Shadespire than on Magic this week. So all of the Shadespire is less than what I will spend on Magic the Gathering for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Just before we go on to the next question, the chat is going crazy right now. Apparently, the big announcement was Plastic Sisters.
Oh, really? Cool. Is it a joke? Is it a joke, or is it like?
I don't know. This is just people chatting, and I don't know. We'll confirm later. But is that bigger than 8th edition, though? I don't know.
I think for like the sort of like the sort of the fanboy in all of us, I think that's...
April Fool's is coming, though. Bit early for that. So.
Oh yeah, that would be like a really cruel. Oh, there you go. No, Plastic Sisters. Let's see. No, these are all.
No.
Grisham armor. Just
Yeah. Well, we'll check out the stream after the cast. But next question is from Nick. Are there any non-GW game boards?
Oh, there's a lot of cool stuff. I'm on the one of that UK Shadespire group, and there's a lot of people making their own sort of custom terrain for Shadespire and boards and stuff, and it looks cool. So I think there's starting to be a sort of a fancy market for some of this stuff, especially like the hex blocking ones. Like they do some beautiful stuff.
So yeah, there are, and there's probably going to be lots of stuff coming out. However, I would warn people, if you are going to clashes, especially ones run by GW, their pack states clearly that you have to use GW stuff from the original Shadespire, so tokens and boards and things like that. So just be aware of that. Now maybe they change that in the future, but as of right now, if you go to like a Warhammer Grand Clash run by GW, you got to use the official stuff, including models. You can't use alternative models.
Yeah, and I find, especially in this game, what I would, because people can sort of, you can tweak your models and stuff, but for ease of recognition, because the models are set, because what each model does, I would be, it would skew the game if someone starts to this Minotaur is like Garrick and this other dude is like Blooded Sake, and it gets confusing as a player. And when you're making split second decisions about how you're going to move stuff, if the models aren't what they look like, then I think I've changed a couple of accents on my dudes, but they're all, and maybe a few heads here and there, but they're all the pose and the is the same thing. So.
Yeah. BJ asked, do I need the cards in the starter, and is there a PDF of those cards so I don't have to buy the starter? Well, we kind of answered the starter question already, but I don't know what he means by is there a PDF. So he means make his own cards?
Well, in Magic the Gathering, you'll have these sort of printable PDFs. If you want to do proxies, if you could you redo proxies. So I mean, yeah,
obviously I don't know if there's a PDF, but you could probably just come over to my house and scan my cards. But
yeah, and I'm sure there is something out there.
Yeah, obviously you wouldn't be able to use that in official capacity, but yeah.
And like you said, you'll probably, if you like the game, you'll end up, pulling the trigger anyways. So.
Guillaume asks, is it possible to play Shadespire and not complain about Earthquake? Just kidding.
Oh yeah, me. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's fine.
Okay, so his real question is, number one, what's the best aggro team?
Oh, I'm going to say Corn because I think I don't know. I really like. They've got the bodies. They've got the speed. And they will go and punch in the face. And
do you think they're more aggro than Stormcast, though?
Stormcast are slow. I don't know. The Stormcast are like defensive though, right? Like their thing is once they aspire on double shields, like they are slow moving tanks that can just take it. Whereas I think
they do a lot of damage too.
They do, but it's the ability to reach out and touch someone, right? Like, and I think if you're going to be aggressive, like, I think even the dwarves are because they have the extra speed, right? So I think the Stormcast, when they're like, they kind of lumber a little bit, right? So, and I just find that something like, the Corn with like the two Corn fighters that are worth anything, or Garrick and Sake, like, I don't know, they're fast and they will get to where they need to go and they will beat up. So I like them as. I would say that they're my favorite aggro.
Okay, cool. How do you counter a defensive warband with a slow-moving warband? Ooh. So how do you play skeletons against a defensive Stormcast?
You just play the defense better than they do. So yeah, I think like I don't know if you're.
That's a pretty boring game, by the way.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think like that, but that would be like two very specific decks meeting each other in a very specific. So I think like if someone's playing a very defensive deck, then that's why you slip in a couple. Like that's what if you slip in Denial in your deck, then someone can play defensively, but you're like, well, I'm gonna just pop someone into your zone, and then I'm gonna kind of like you're gonna fall on your own sword kind of thing.
I'm not sure if you're a skeleton guy, you would put Denial in your deck just for that, though. Because otherwise that's a dead card in every other matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's you just kind of sit back and twiddle your thumbs. I mean, it's a pretty boring game, but I guess it could happen.
Yeah, but I think that you like
because that
might line up and happen that way. But I think most more often than not, you're going to meet sort of a variety of decks, and you just have to like be ready. Like if you're going to play defensively, make sure that you can out defense someone who also plays defensively. So basically, you're just running a clock to see who can sit and castle up.
Yeah, you just sneak one petitioner just past the no man's zone and leave it there.
And you'd still want to like send someone out to go do some killing too, right? Like I think that's
what's your best bet if you're new to the game? Aggressive, defensive, or objectives? I think it's easiest just to go up and smack people. I think playing defensive or playing pure objectives does take a little bit more thinking, but even that's not really what separates it out. I think just some warbands are easier to play because they have less things to do. Right?
I think like the favorite one to get into is orcs. I think they were like they're good, they're strong, they do a lot of things well. They obviously don't sit on objectives particularly well, but they're pretty straightforward. I think when my first game playing with the skeletons a couple weeks ago, like I remember just being like,
dude,
"Oh man,
you had total analysis paralysis, man."
I was like, "Wow, I have like six fighters to like. How am I supposed to do this?" It was just like there's like way more mechanics to worry about. Same thing with Skaven. So I think if you're starting out, I'd say the dwarves
or orcs. Yeah.
Even Stormcast, I find, are like because you only have 3 models, like they can be quite punishing. So I think I would say orcs and the dwarves are like good. I don't know. To me, it feels like they're good, stable.
But dwarves still need some finesse, right? Like because you got to because of the objectives. Yeah. I think the reavers are good to start with as well because you don't have to worry about inspiring them. Eventually they'll just inspire, right? Because a number of people dead and then they'll just inspire. You have to remember to inspire them.
they're more punishing if you're out of position and you kind of leave yourself open to a counter charge, you will get they just evaporate, right? So that's their drawback, I suppose. Orcs is a nice fun satisfying way to start, I think.
Okay, so Val says, yes, Shadespire content's not really a question. And Kieran asks us who's on this week, and the answer is you. Phil.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I think that takes us to the end of tonight's podcasts. Any further thoughts, Phil?
No, I'm just looking forward to like that day where we're gonna play. Like how many games is it in that tournament day?
So it's 3 rounds. Each round is 1 hour and a half, best of 3.
So it's like three. So it's you're guaranteed at least three.
And
three
there's
games.
a 4th round for the top 4. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So April 14th, everybody, if you want to come and play some lots of Shadespire in a nice, friendly environment, you'll definitely go home with at least something. Please check out CanHammer.ca for all the details for the CanHammer Clash number 1. And with that, we're going to say good night.
Good night.
Thank you for completing this episode of CanHammer. If you'd like more information on what we do, our YouTube channel, or any events we run, see CanHammer.ca. If you would like to donate to the show, you can visit patreon.com/CanHammer, where you can donate and subscribe, and you'll get some sick rewards. If donating is not your thing, then just leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That really helps us get recognized and helps new people find the show. So with that, hopefully we'll see you on the battlefield.